So hello and welcome to the Blockdaemon podcast. Today we're joined by Thibaut Perriard, Head of Business Strategy at Bifrost Finance, and ZJ Ouyang, Technical Account Manager here in Blockdaemon, to take a deep dive into Bifrost, an innovative cross-chain liquid staking protocol that became the fifth project to secure a parachain slot auction on Kusama, successfully went live on Polkadot in 2022, and today is paving the way in cross-chain liquidity. Blockdaemon has recently partnered with Bifrost to contribute to the validator boost list, and in today's conversation, we'll explore the ins and outs of what this is, an overview of the liquid staking ecosystem, and what to look out for in the future. So thank you both for joining me today. Before we jump in, Thibaut, maybe starting with yourself, could you give me a bit of a background of yourself, what your role is currently, and I suppose a bit more detail about Bifrost and your journey so far?
Yeah, Connor, definitely. So I'm Swiss, but I'm currently based in the East. I'm currently based in mainland China. I moved there in 2019, and I've been working for Bifrost since early 2022. Before that, I have a TradeFi background in FX. I was doing that for about 7 to 8 years for a boutique Swiss FX hedge fund. And I've been in crypto since early 2017 and full time with Bifrost, as I mentioned, in early 2022. And I head both business development as well as strategy for the team.
That's great. And CJ, turning over to yourself now, could you give me a bit of background on yourself, your current role in Blockdaemon, and day-to-day activities as well?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I'm ZJ, and I'm the technical account manager, covering APAC and supporting customers across the region in APAC zones. So I'm based in Singapore. I joined Blockdaemon last January, together with Andrew, who is our GM and VP Sales of APAC. So we started the team just from two of us, and right now we are scaled to having over 10 people across Asia, with the majority of the team actually based in Singapore. So my role is a hybrid of pre-sales, which involves a bit of business development work, and also post-sales, like onboarding customers, building relationships with existing customers, and also working closely with our customer support team to help resolve any issues that our customers are facing. Maybe I'll give a very quick background of Blockdaemon. So we are the largest independent node infrastructure provider. We currently support over 60 protocols, blockchain networks, and we operate insured nodes for our customers, maintaining like a very high uptime of 99.9%. We do have 24/7 coverage as well. So we have support and presence across major regions in North America, EMEA and APAC. So basically, we leverage like our infrastructure to develop scalable products for exchanges, custodians, crypto platforms, financial institutions, and our key products and offerings include definitely offering the node infrastructure side, but also unified data APIs, which is our Ubiquity offering. That is a single endpoint to allow users to connect to 19 protocols. We also offer institutional grade staking for major POS protocols such as Ethereum, Polkadot, Solana, Kusama, and lastly, our latest addition to our stack of offering is our MPC wallet solutions.
Absolutely. Great stuff, CJ. Thank you for that. And Thibaut, to jump into the Bifrost ecosystem now, for listeners who may not be as familiar with Kusama, Polkadot, and Bifrost, can you briefly kind of touch on what each of these ecosystems are, how they interplay together, how they work together, and then also just tell me about the journey that Bifrost has been on since winning the fifth parachain slot auction on Kusama to today, and maybe some of the milestones that have been achieved along the way.
Yeah, most definitely. So Bifrost is actually a dedicated liquid staking L1. It's powered and secured by Polkadot. So what is Polkadot? Polkadot is a scalable network of specialized blockchains. So it's more of a layer zero, if you like. Kusama is the sister of Polkadot. They share the same code base, pretty much the same logic. But the whole philosophy behind Kusama and Polkadot is Kusama was more the test grounds. Blockchains could go on, try them out. If they failed, they failed. That was part of Gavin Wood's vision. And then on top of that, you would then go to Polkadot with a more mature blockchain project, vision, and idea implementation. So Polkadot obviously leverages off interoperability, the security of the relay chain, and Bifrost as a parachain sort of an L1 on top of that is basically secured by that relay chain of Polkadot and Kusama, because we have both Bifrost on Kusama and on Polkadot. And essentially the computations of these parachains are done sort of independently, but they do rely on this sort of core of the relay chain. So Bifrost in itself is not an ecosystem per se; it's more of a middle layer. So we are, in the liquid staking business. As you rightly mentioned, we successfully got a Kusama parachain back in late 2021. Essentially, at the time, we were not doing liquid staking yet within the Kusama and Polkadot ecosystem. I think it was still very much early days. So what we were doing there in terms of our service is we were providing liquid crowd loans. So that's part of also the structure and concept of Polkadot and Kusama is for Polkadot or Kusama projects which would like to have some sort of block space on these networks, they have to bid for crowd loans. And how that works is you have to sort of secure a certain amount of Kusama or Polkadot within that sort of duration of that crowd loan. But that's sort of staked and locked. So we came up with this sort of innovative solution back then, which was you could contribute to these different bidding auctions via Bifrost and then receive this liquid crowd loan derivative that can be used during that crowd loan lockup. But essentially when Kusama matured, Polkadot matured, and more projects were coming out to fruition, we then ended up seeing that we could start offering liquid staking solutions within that. So we started off with Kusama, and then we launched with Polkadot. And then essentially we then continued with other parachains, both on Kusama and Polkadot. So the likes of Moonriver on Kusama, which is an EVM parachain. It's sort of big brother parachain on Polkadot, Moonbeam. And we've done that sort of incrementally with our roadmap. But I have to say also, I mean, before being a Polkadot and Kusama parachain, Bifrost did, just after Lido, go into the liquid staking business and launch a derivative for Liquid ETH. So we have a live, Liquid ETH derivative since October of 2020, just before the liquid staking narrative has sort of become where it is today, a pretty predominant theme as we've seen. And it still remains a compelling product of ours, but we are now focusing primarily on the Polkadot and Kusama network and ecosystem, and as well as looking at other ecosystems, which I can touch upon after.
And you touched on liquid staking there, that you're in the liquid staking business, but maybe just for anyone who may not be as familiar with what liquid staking actually is, could you just give me a brief explanation of, what is liquid staking, what are the benefits of it, and how does it fit into the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, perhaps before speaking about liquid staking, I can just briefly touch upon staking. So, I mean, staking is a one way to secure a proof of stake POS, blockchain network, like with Ethereum, as we've seen with the merge. So you've got validators which are running nodes on the blockchain, securing and decentralizing the network, and you, as a user who are holding these tokens, you can stake your tokens, and you're basically participating in that sort of consensus. However, the opportunity cost there is that you're staking your token, and there's a lack of capital efficiency, and you don't have the liquidity of the token per se. So you're getting these sort of rewards on every block, sort of as similar to like holding, if you like, specific an account at a bank, whatever, and getting interest. Perhaps not the best analogy, but just to simplify things. And I think liquid staking is an interesting, compelling solution there, where you're solving the capital efficiency issue as well as the liquidity issue and the opportunity costs, and more and more protocols have jumped on that. So essentially, you're basically staking or including your tokens within a smart contract, and you receive a one-to-one asset which represents that stake, and that specific asset is depending on the model of the liquid staking protocol. In terms of its, rebasing or non-basing mechanism, one-to-one parity to the underlying, you're incrementally having exposure to the staking rewards which are accruing, but essentially you have the opportunity to use that asset within DeFi, and we've seen that sort of grow quite a lot now with obviously Shapella, and obviously last year with the merge. So there's some interesting primitives now which are building on top, which I can also touch upon afterwards. But essentially, stakers are securing the network with their tokens, whether it's ETH or another POS network, and they're also getting that additional yield within DeFi. And it's sort of removing the opportunity costs between ETH and DeFi, which used to be a bit of a dilemma for users back then.
Absolutely. And ZJ, Blockdaemon now offers support for liquid staking in the Ethereum ecosystem, but also Blockdaemon, is a long-standing supporter of both Polkadot and Kusama. Could you just give me a brief overview of Blockdaemon's long-standing role as participating in both Polkadot and Kusama networks and how it brings this experience to benefit Bifrost today?
Yeah, definitely. So as of today, Blockdaemon currently powers over 90,000 nodes across the 60 plus protocols and networks that we support. And we are scaling really massively on our node infrastructure side. Just to give a bit of context, when I joined Blockdaemon just a year back, we are only at 35,000 nodes globally, and that's already significantly huge. And we support 45 plus protocols. But since the past year, we actually scaled 3x on supporting nodes globally, and just touching upon the global diversity of our nodes, we are able to host, or we do currently host our nodes both on cloud servers as well as physical data centers, which we have locations across regions like Singapore, Amsterdam, Pittsburgh, as well. So we offer this diversification and options to users, which is really important when you think about diversifying and decentralization of the nodes. And one of the key things to call is that we are also trusted by a lot of our partners in terms of maintaining node uptime, security, and compliance. So just to highlight, we actually got our ISO 27001 certification last year. So this capability of running nodes in a professional, secure, and also compliant manner, together with our capability to offer diversity of hosting nodes, are actually an advantage when we think about the Bifrost SLP program. Because again, as we mentioned, when we think about node hosting and location, especially when it comes to validators or collator nodes, decentralization is and has always been a key focus to users. So just more specifically on Polkadot and Kusama network, we have actually been actively participating in both chains as a validator since back in 2019. So that's almost 4 years in the running. And we currently have over 15 to 20 active validators and collators across Polkadot, Kusama, Moonbeam, and we still continue to add validators onto these networks from time to time. So just in terms of the support side, we also have a strong team of engineers and node operations team who are based in Europe and North America. And they dedicate their expertise to look after all these nodes and infrastructure within Blockdaemon. So our key strength lies in our provision of quality assurance and testing of subsystems, which also includes monitoring, logging, and balancing. So we utilize enterprise monitoring tools such as Grafana to log, monitor, and review events data. We do have controls in place in accordance with our ISO 27001 certification. And we also have additional monitoring, especially on the validator activity side, just to track sign blocks, validator rewards, etc. We do keep an eye out for unusual blockchain behavior and API requests as well. So our team constantly monitors and also tracks for any routine protocol updates required across all these networks. So the way we perform network upgrades is that prior to any updates being rolled out on the production nodes, we actually do test them on our spare infrastructure just to ensure that when we roll out these updates to our production nodes, there will not be any disruption of service. And lastly, one of the key things is that our team actually stay really close to the community. So we maintain a close relationship, and we also participate actively within the community like Polkadot, Kusama, and Moonbeam community. And what this means is that we do get alerted when there is any security critical bugs, exploits, and upgrades. And we monitor some of the protocol alert channels and also their GitHub, GitLab repositories for any announcements, bugs, and releases.
That's great, CJ. But you mentioned one term there, the Bifrost Staking Liquidity Protocol, earlier in your answer, but I'd just like to double click on that in case anyone is wondering, what that is. Thibault, would you be able to give me an overview of what the Bifrost Staking Liquidity Protocol is, and maybe some information as well about its governance mechanism?
Yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, essentially, the staking liquidity protocol, the SLP, is in itself our liquid staking product, right? As simple as it is. Now, in terms of coming back to the actual talks about decentralization versus centralization, there's obviously a fine in between. We've obviously tried to be as decentralized as possible. However, there are some sort of, I would say, headaches around that as well, because you are looking for liquidity and volume as a liquid staking protocol. But you also want to address, the whole spectrum of users, right? You want to go from the retail to the community, to also potentially the institution, who obviously has different requirements, both in terms of legal compliance. And I think that's also the reason why we have worked with Blockdaemon and have sort of pushed that partnership, essentially, because we are very active in the community, both at single operators, but also having people like Blockdaemon within our product offering. We do delegate to their nodes on different networks. They're part of our protocol. I can jump into a few different sort of initiatives we have in place to make sure that the protocol is as decentralized as possible in terms of governance, and for node operators like Blockdaemon, who can come in and sort of make a suggestion, and then on top of that they can be voted by community members. But the goal is also to have a very diversified node delegation set. So how that works is we do have a collection of selected validators which we delegate to. That delegation is done sort of, I would say, algorithmically. Essentially, we've transitioned to, essentially at the beginning, it was more of a human interaction. We had sort of a script running through the different validators, looking at different, important, I would say, quantitative and qualitative metrics. And then we would basically score them. And these scoring mechanisms sort of change quite a lot. They're reviewed. And then these I would say validators are within the whitelist, if you want to call it. And then the whole governance aspect comes into the validator boost list, which is sort of the VBL, where basically we can mark specific nodes upon a submission by a validator who has a compelling value offering, and he can remain in a boost list for a specific amount of time, 6 months, as long as he's respecting sort of the norms of his proposal. And that proposal is submitted on chain. It's reviewed by Bifrost council members, and it's then reviewed by the members of the community who are willing to either push this through or not. And Blockdaemon have done a great job there in being very transparent with our community in terms of the track record that Blockdaemon has in the space, the quality of its services, and how it can basically address, I would say, from the retail to the institution in terms of its offering. So that's, in a nutshell, the different sort of measures we have in place to ensure that the liquid staking protocol is as diversified and as decentralized as possible.
Absolutely, and it seems that you really the whole project really values that decentralization. But CJ, coming to yourself now, we kind of touched on the VBL, the validator boost list, from a protocol perspective, from Bifrost perspective. However, from an infrastructure provider perspective, how does Blockdaemon's experience running nodes, kind of proven track record across Kusama and Polkadot, contribute to the success of the validator boost list? And what are the advantages that Blockdaemon brings to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so just for context, we currently do not hold any collateral tokens, or we do not have a liquid staking product or solutions on the Polkadot and Kusama chains. But as Connor earlier you shared, we do have a liquid staking product for Ethereum which is our Potara liquid staking product that we offer to institutional businesses. It's more of a B2B product offering out there, and not really offered to retail users. So one of the key focus in terms of when we talk about our experience in providing staking as a service offering and solutions to our users is that we focus a lot on on-chain native staking. So what this means is that we do not want to be we do not want to hold or be in custody of the tokens of our customers who stake to our validators. So in other words, there will be no situation where we ask our users to transfer tokens to us. They can actually stake natively from their wallet onto the chain. So as a result of our long standing and record in this space, we do know and have worked with a lot of institution customers and providers in the space, and we have a wide customer base across APAC, EMEA, and North Americas, who are either using us as a staking provider or our partners. So I would say like our key advantage over here in this ecosystem is that we can and we will continue to support Bifrost in terms of their staking solutions. And if there are any of our clients or customers who are looking for liquid staking solutions, we are definitely open to making introductions. So again, this community is really small and tight, and we like to just keep everything and everybody in loop of what's going on in the industry.
That's great, CJ. Thank you for that. And turning then to interoperability, Thibaut, I'd like to dive a little bit into, for those people who may not be familiar with cross-chain interoperability, what it is and how does this cross-chain focus work within the Bifrost platform?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think essentially the issue we're seeing across the blockchain space is exactly that, interoperability. And what is interoperability? Well, what it actually means is, allowing a smart contract on a different chain to communicate with each other on another chain without having any problems. I mean, that's as simple as it is, right? And we're seeing that, in the past, there's been a lot of like bridges, being used, which have had their issues. And I think where we stand and why we've strategically decided to build on Polkadot and Kusama was because of essentially interoperability is at the core of their blockchain sort of thesis. And the beauty of that is the fact that, given that we are all different parachains within the Polkadot ecosystem, natively we can communicate via cross-chain messaging format, which is Polkadot's communication format. We can do so in a trustless way amongst parachains, so amongst L1s. And now we're seeing some interesting developments where certain parachains within Polkadot have their own solutions in communicating with other L1s, which are in other ecosystems, such as the likes of, Cosmos, Near. And we're seeing, some teams which are now working around Ethereum to Polkadot. So there's some interesting points here. So essentially, I think the value proposition of Bifrost is that we're building on top of Polkadot, which has interoperability and cross-chain within its core. But then I think what we've seen other liquid staking protocols building on Ethereum is that they are doing smart contracts which cannot communicate with other smart contracts on other chains. They have to go through some sort of bridging solution where there's risks, involved. And essentially the liquidity is siloed, right? And I think the beauty of what we're building is that there's a standardized format for these liquid staking derivatives, which means that they would essentially be able to share the same security standards, but as well share the liquidity. So within Bifrost or within Polkadot broadly, VDOT or vKusama could interact with an EVM, WASM compatible parachain, and the liquidity wouldn't be sort of siloed, and it could be, the standardization is shared across that. And I think that's key. It's key because, I think taking a step back about the whole staking, thesis and liquid staking is, if we believe that the terminal ETH staking rate is going to increase and that the staking rate amongst POS networks is going to increase, we're obviously going to see that liquid staking derivatives or liquid staking tokens, as you want to call them, are going to be treated as the sort of the prime asset, the prime collateral, the base asset within DeFi. And having a cross-chain solution which can, address this sort of cross-chain narrative, which is is on everybody's minds, is going to be key. So I think although there are other protocols which are doing a great job, I do think that in the long term, longevity and with the cross-chain narrative, we're very well positioned in providing a standardized cross-chain liquid staking solution to other networks.
And you mentioned there, VDOT and vKusama, two of the flagship liquid staking tokens, in these ecosystems. But CJ, and a practical, user-focused approach, how does Blockdaemon's partnership with Bifrost benefit users who stake their KSM and DOT through Bifrost's SLP?
So I think when we think about staking, one of the risks for users who are doing like on-chain, on native staking is the risk of slashing. So just to give a background of what slashing is about, it's actually a penalty that is applied to validators who are or node operators running the validators for misbehaving or in another word not actually performing their validators duty. So this can be double signing, for example, or not maintaining uptime of their nodes. So when their validators go offline and they are not validating the blocks, then that's where the network will punish them through slashing. So when a validator is slashed, all their delegators who are delegating their tokens to that particular validator would have their rewards penalized. So as a user, you actually end up earning lesser rewards if you are actually staking or delegating your rewards to a validator that got slashed. So just for context, for the past 12 months, Blockdaemon's Polkadot and Kusama validators have not been slashed. So this is again as a result of the fact that we monitor and we always ensure that our nodes and validators perform and maintain a high uptime of 99.9%. So that helps to avoid things such as missing block validation, double signing, and we do keep an eye out for all these activities. So one of the key call out that I would say is that we provide slashing insurance to all our customers contracted with us. So any customers who are staking to our validators are covered under this slashing insurance. So in the event of an unfortunate slashing incident occurring on our validators as a result of an erroneous mistake on Blockdaemon's end, we would cover our clients and customers for their miss and slash rewards. And our partnership with Bifrost do ensure that they are also covered in the event of this unfortunate slashing event if that occurs. So as users who are participating in Bifrost program, what this also means is that they can be guaranteed that their rewards and returns participating in Bifrost program will be insured because the underlying validator that Bifrost program is running with, which is Blockdaemon's validators, do have a slashing insurance being covering Bifrost for that.
CJ, thank you for that context. But Thibault, returning to the VKSM and VDOT, who to you are the key target cohorts for these products, these use cases, either from an institutional perspective or was an everyday user perspective, and also just how do you see these offerings evolving in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this sort of goes quite nicely with what I was saying before about if our premise about staking rates across POS networks is to increase, and what we've seen in the past 6 months, roughly 6 months, liquid staking narratives becoming more and more present. We've obviously also seen that liquid staking is now the number one sort of service ahead of DeFi, DEXs and money markets. About 19.23 billion now is within the liquid staking sort of segment of DeFi. So we're obviously seeing a lot of interest there from your average user to essentially the person who uses crypto from time to time, but uses it via a centralized exchange, which is now providing liquid staking, the likes of Binance and Coinbase. And then essentially the institutions, you've got your spectrum of institutional users, from your very crypto savvy hedge fund to your VC to essentially to your liquidity providers, but also your institution who's just getting started, who has some sort of exposure and who would essentially look at liquid staking via a custodian or eventually a solution like Blockdaemon via Harbor is providing on the ETH side. So VDOT, vKusama is pretty much tailored to any of those potential customers. Obviously, there are going to be some requirements on the compliance and AML front, which we're not willing to shape our solution towards, because that would take some sort of decentralization aspects out of the protocol. So essentially, we have seen that from as I said, a native institution to a user to either a foundation, a DAO, whatever. These are interesting solutions on the liquid staking front. We are looking to tailor as well to non-native, but that's going to take a bit more time. But coming back to our overall premise, we definitely think that liquid staking is here to stay. It's obviously a compelling value offering, and we're seeing now some very interesting primitives building on top of these yield generating assets. As we've seen in traditional finance, whether it's from treasuries to any other type of asset that has some sort of these yield generating features, they're used as a collateral in structured products, right? And we're seeing now with sort of this rise of liquid staking finance, LSDFi they're calling, where there are some interesting narratives where the underlying asset is the liquid staking derivative, and some cases are being used on top of that. And I definitely think from an institutional point of view, to even a native user, holding a liquid staking asset, although there could be security risks depending on what can happen, is a more compelling offering than just native staking. But that's obviously my opinion. So where we stand on our front is we keep driving forward as being the largest and the number one sort of solution within Polkadot and Kusama. We are working on more and more liquid staking solutions across different networks. As I said, we have VETH, which is our ETH liquid staking, which we're working on mainnet use cases on the DeFi front with use cases on blue chips like Balancer, as well as other protocols. We have a Filecoin liquid staking solution, which is currently on Bifrost, which we're currently upgrading to the FVM, so the Filecoin virtual machine contract. That will be live in the next 2 months. So an interesting value proposition for different partners within the Filecoin ecosystem, from storage providers to users. And we're going to continue looking at different POS networks which can benefit from liquid staking, and essentially have that standardization sort of premise at the forefront of our solution, such that there are cross-chain use cases in the future. So we're working on that, and we're working on use cases. Essentially, you can hold the liquid staking asset per se, but also if you can use it within different DeFi use cases with other protocols, it can benefit the ecosystem as a whole. It can obviously benefit the node providers because they're getting more delegations, and also the network, because you're decentralizing the network. There's more stake at hand. You're securing the consensus mechanism as well. So hopefully, everybody's benefiting in one way or another.
A compelling roadmap to be sure, Thibaut, and thank you for that insight. But ZJ, just from an infrastructure perspective, from a technical perspective, what are the unbonding times that an institutional customer would have to face without a solution such as Bifrost? How long a customer would have to wait to access their locked up Polkadot or Kusama tokens without liquid staking?
Yeah, so I think earlier on, Thibaut highlighted a really key advantage of liquid staking. The fact that, even though there's a risk of holding the liquid token, but for institutions who are looking for liquidity, liquid staking is definitely one of the solutions out there if they are looking to earn yield and yet keep that liquidity option available. So a lot of time, like when we talk about Kusama and Polkadot bonding, the key challenge here in terms of staking and doing on-chain staking on these two networks is the really long unbonding time. So to give an explanation of what unbonding time refers to, basically that's the time it takes for you to completely be able to withdraw your token from the network. So the unbonding period for Polkadot is 28 days. So that's almost a month. And for that of Kusama is 6 days. And as we all know, things change really quickly in this space. So having your tokens locked up for 28 days or 6 days is a really long time. So the liquid staking program that Bifrost has rolled out for users allows users to actually get their tokens back within a period shorter than that of what the protocol native staking is offering. So they can simply redeem their token at the protocol, the SLP level. And I think that's a really huge advantage for users who are still looking to continue supporting the network by staking their tokens on chain, but they still do want that liquidity option of getting their tokens back in a quicker, shorter time frame.
Thank you for that context, EJ. And as we wrap up today, Thibaut, where can people go to learn a bit more about Bifrost? And do you have any closing thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Yeah, so in terms of where we can be reached, well, I think, our website, we also have a Wikidocs page, which is quite good in terms of, covering everything from the protocol and the different offerings we have. We have a Discord channel as well, where we have ambassadors and team members which are available. Twitter is obviously a good way as well. On my end, I can be reached out on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I think furthermore, I think I was clear in my previous answers, we are very, very committed to the whole liquid staking narrative. We think it's really a key solution for any sort of party within the space. We'll have to see sort of how things evolve. We've seen that there were a lot of discussions around Shapella in terms of the diversification around who has the monopoly. We've seen that Lido still remains the number one sort of option, with a few others sort of jumping in. It'll be interesting to see how these different protocols, I say, provide value. That could be within DeFi use cases, or essentially it could be that one of them has an issue and unfortunately something happens. But we are pushing for more people to start coming into the space and essentially seeing less monopolies, because that can create issues at some point, and it can also shatter a specific industry as well. But yeah, I think cross-chain is obviously the compelling future narrative, and the one which we're prepared for.
Thank you for that additional context, and thank you ZJ, thank you Thibaut, for covering all things Bifrost, liquid staking, Polkadot Kusama ecosystems, for the interesting insight into Blockdaemon's history in these ecosystems, as well as the future exciting roadmap of Bifrost as well. So thank you very much for joining me today, and take care.